Autumn, 1879. A 16-year-old boy quietly walks away from his father's Michigan farm. In his pockets, he carries nothing, but in his mind, he holds a restless obsession with gears and engines. He despised the plow, and the dirt held nothing but the agonizing memory of his recently deceased mother. He was walking toward Detroit, a rising beast of steam and steel. 35 years later, half the cars on Earth would bear his name, Henry Ford. Born on a sweltering summer morning in 1863 on a modest farm in Dearborn, Michigan, Henry Ford was expected to inherit the family land and become the sturdy pillar of the household, just like his father. But Henry possessed a restless soul that absolutely refused to belong to the soil. While his father placed all his faith in backbreaking physical labor, young Henry was captivated by things you couldn't grow: gears, levers, and mechanisms. He despised plowing the fields, later confessing with brutal honesty that he never actually loved the farm. The only thing he truly loved was his mother who lived there. Profoundly bored by theoretical learning, he dropped out after the 8th grade because he wanted to physically touch knowledge and tear it apart. The true spark of his genius ignited at the age of 12 when his father gifted him a simple pocket watch. Instead of just telling the time, Henry completely dismantled the intricate device and flawlessly put it back together within days, earning himself the title of Dearborn's Young Watchmaker. But the ultimate turning point happened when he was 13. During a school trip to Detroit, Henry was absolutely hypnotized by the deafening roar, the shaking pipes, and the unbridled power of a massive operating steam engine. In that single fleeting moment, a massive door swung open in his mind. He realized he didn't just want to fix machines anymore. He wanted to create them. However, tragedy struck when his mother, Mary, suddenly passed away, violently snapping the fragile thread tying him to the soil. The farm instantly transformed into a suffocating, agonizing prison, and absolutely every reason to stay vanished into thin air. So, in 1879, armed with nothing but ferocious stubbornness and an insatiable curiosity, the 16-year-old packed a few ragged clothes and marched straight toward Detroit. Detroit in 1879 was a terrifying threat and a glittering promise, a chaotic, breathing monster of thick smoke and deafening hammer strikes. Henry's first encounter with the real world was a violent reality check. He landed a job at the Michigan Car Company Works, but was unceremoniously fired in exactly 6 days. The industrial world taught him a brutal lesson that no one cares about a farm boy's dreams. Yet, he refused to crawl back. He took a grueling job at the James Flower Brothers machine shop for a pathetic $2.5 a week, which wasn't even enough to cover rent. To survive, he moonlighted in a jewelry shop, fixing watches for 6 hours a night, 6 days a week, just to earn an extra $3 and keep his hands on gears. At 19, he momentarily retreated home, where his father bought a portable steam engine. Henry immediately mastered the beast, catching the eye of the massive Westinghouse Corporation, who hired the young prodigy to travel and repair their engines. By 1885, he met Clara Jane Bryant, marrying her a year later. His father gifted them 40 acres of land to settle down, but Henry had zero intention of planting corn. His destiny shifted forever in 1891 when he read about Nikolaus Otto's revolutionary gasoline engine, which operated on internal combustion triggered by an electrical spark. Completely obsessed with understanding the electrical spark ignition, Henry executed a brilliant tactical move. He took a night shift job at the Edison Illuminating Company. For $40 a month, he fixed steam engines. But more importantly, he used his free time as a secret late-night laboratory to study the invisible power of electricity. The pieces were finally falling into place. 1893, two massive events collided: the birth of his son, Edsel, and the successful creation of his very first hand-built gasoline engine. By June 4th, 1896, at 1:30 a.m., Henry completed the quadricycle, a crude machine resembling two welded bicycles that miraculously drove, taking his first step into the automotive industry. By 1899, he built a heavier prototype, secured backing from lumber baron William Murphy, and launched the Detroit Automobile Company. But victory was a mirage. Investors demanded luxurious, high-priced cars, while Henry, a relentless perfectionist, wanted to build affordable engines for the common man. Producing a pathetic 20 cars in 2 years due to supply chain nightmares and internal warfare, investors lost patience, and Henry was fired from his own company. Realizing he needed a massive PR stunt, he built a 26-horsepower race car and stunningly defeated the national champion, Alexander Winton. Detroit went wild, and investors came crawling back, birthing the Henry Ford Company. But history cruelly repeated itself when new partners demanded passenger cars, went behind his back to hire an outside engineer, and caused a profoundly betrayed Henry to resign in a fit of rage. That company ironically became Cadillac. Now a two-time loser viewed as an arrogant failure, Henry had one last shot. In 1902, completely broke, he teamed up with former cyclist Tom Cooper to build an 80-horsepower racing beast named the 999. Driven by daredevil Barney Oldfield, the monster obliterated Winton again, cementing Ford as the undisputed king of American automotive design. But to build a lasting empire, Henry realized he had to completely destroy and rebuild the very concept of human labor itself. After 2 humiliating failures, Henry Ford has finally learned his lesson. In 1903, backed by 11 partners, including a coal merchant named Alexander Malcolmson, he founded his third and final empire, the Ford Motor Company. But this time, Henry isn't just building a car, he is launching a crusade. He makes an audacious, almost insane promise to the world. I will build a motor car for the great multitude, et envisions à machine so simple, so durable, and so ridiculously cheap that any common laborer with a decent salary can own one. He doesn't want to build luxury toys for the rich. He wants to democratize human mobility. To pull off this miracle, Henry realizes he must completely eliminate his reliance on third-party suppliers, a fatal flaw that destroyed his first company. He needs total control, and more importantly, he needs unprecedented speed. The spark of genius comes from the most unlikely place imaginable, a Chicago slaughterhouse. Henry observes how carcasses move smoothly from station to station on a conveyor belt while the butchers stand perfectly still. A massive light bulb goes off in his head. What if we build cars exactly like this? He tested this moving assembly line concept on the Model N in 1906, and the results are staggering. Production skyrockets, and the cost plummets. Then, in the year of 1908, the world stops spinning. Henry unleashes the ultimate machine, the Model T. Forged from a revolutionary, super strong, and lightweight vanadium steel, the Model T is practically indestructible. It hits the market at an initial price of $850, and the American public loses its mind. 15,000 orders flood in within days. People don't want luxury, they want freedom, and the Model T is freedom on 4 wheels. To feed this insatiable demand, Ford built the colossal Highland Park plant in 1910. By 1913, his assembly line was a perfectly choreographed mechanical ballet. The chassis moves continuously while workers attach parts, slicing the assembly time from a grueling 12 hours down to a mind-blowing 90 minutes. By 1916, he made good on his promise, slashing the price of the Model T to under $400. But there is a dark, hidden cost to this efficiency. The assembly line is brutally monotonous. It crushes the human spirit, leading to massive burnout and workers quitting in droves. Faced with a crippling labor crisis, Henry executes a move in 1914 that shocks the entire capitalist world. He doubles the daily wage to an unheard of $5 a day and reduces the workday to 8 hours. Wall Street calls him a lunatic, predicting immediate bankruptcy. Instead, the exact opposite happens. Mechanics from all over the country flock to Detroit. Productivity explodes, turnover vanishes, and with the 8-hour shift, Ford runs his factories 24/7. And the ultimate masterstroke? His workers now make enough money to actually buy the very cars they are building. Henry Ford has conquered the globe. He isn't just a businessman anymore. He is a god of industry. But there is a fatal flaw in becoming a god. When you reach the absolute top of the mountain, you stop listening to the mortals below. And Henry is about to make a catastrophic mistake that will bring his invincible empire to its knees. By 1919, Henry was suffocating under the demands of his investors. He is sick of answering to anyone. So, in a ruthless and brilliant financial strike, he buys out every single shareholder, taking 100% total control of the Ford Motor Company. He installs his son, Edsel, as the president on paper. But make no mistake, Henry holds all the strings. He is now the undisputed, absolute monarch of the largest automotive empire on earth. But absolute power breeds absolute stubbornness. As the Roaring Twenties roll in, the world begins to change. The American consumer is getting wealthier. They want style, comfort, colors, and options. Rivals like Chevrolet start offering exactly that. But Henry, trapped in his own genius, arrogantly refuses to touch his beloved Model T. For over a decade, while the rest of the world evolves, Henry forces the exact same car down the public's throat, viciously rejecting even his own son, Edsel's desperate pleas to update the design. The market punishes his arrogance. Sales of the Model T violently crash. Finally, backed into a corner in 1927, Henry is forced to shut down the iconic Model T production line entirely. To build its successor, the Model A, he constructs the legendary River Rouge plant, a mind-boggling industrial fortress that processes everything from raw steel to the final car. But the magic is gone. The Model A is successful, but it cannot reclaim the monopoly. General Motors and Chrysler have learned how to play the game better, offering modern, customizable vehicles. Even Henry's introduction of the powerful Vate engine in 1932 cannot stop the bleeding. Then, the Great Depression unleashes hell on America. Ford's sales plummet, wages are brutally slashed, and massive, violent strikes erupt at his gates. The invincible giant of Detroit is suddenly looking old, vulnerable, and out of touch. Yet, the ultimate tragedy that breaks Henry Ford is not financial. It is profoundly personal. In 1943, his only son, Edsel Ford, died of stomach cancer at the young age of 49. The loss shatters Henry's soul. Devastated, grieving, and deteriorating in health, the aging patriarch desperately tries to retake the wheel of his company, but he is a shadow of the man he once was. The Ford Motor Company is now standing on the edge of a terrifying abyss. The world is engulfed in the flames of World War II. The company is bleeding millions, and its legendary founder is emotionally broken. Will this be the final, tragic chapter of the Ford legacy? Or will the deadliest conflict in human history force this dying empire to rise from the ashes one last time? As the 1940s roll in, the world stands on the terrifying edge of an abyss. World War II is actively reshaping the geopolitical map, and the American automotive industry is forced to face a grim new reality. At first, Henry Ford vehemently opposes American intervention in the war and stubbornly refuses to convert his massive factories for military production. But destiny forces his hand. After the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the entire nation pivots to the war effort, and Ford's empire undergoes a radical, unprecedented transformation. The company transitions from a civilian automaker into an absolute military juggernaut. Ford constructed the Willow Run plant in Michigan in record time, with one singular, impossible goal: mass-producing the B-24 Liberator bombers. No car factory had ever mass-produced airplanes before. But Ford applies his ultimate superpower: pure, industrial efficiency. At its absolute peak, this mechanical beast churns out one massive bomber every 63 minutes. Powered by a new workforce, including the legendary Rosie the Riveter women who stepped up while men went to the front lines, the factory became a shining symbol of American manufacturing might. Ford also pumps out tank engines, military jeeps, transport trucks, and vital parts for various military branches. The sheer efficiency of the Ford production model plays a decisive role in securing the Allied victory. The man whose initial vision was to democratize mobility ends up using his mass production genius to defend global democracy itself. But the invincible Titan is finally running out of fuel. Worn down by the crushing loss of his son Edsel, the immense pressures of the war, and the relentless march of time, his mind and body begin to fail. In 1945, at the age of 82, Henry Ford officially steps down, handing the keys to his empire to his grandson, Henry Ford II. The cycle is complete. The man who dragged the world into the 20th century quietly retreats to his Dearborn farm, leaving the global stage for good. On April 7, 1947, at the age of 83, Henry Ford passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. The news sends shockwaves across Detroit and the entire globe. Politicians, business moguls, factory workers, and engineers all gather to mourn the man who forever altered the concepts of transport, work, and production. It all started with a farm boy who absolutely hated plowing fields, but was hypnotized by the intricate gears of a broken pocket watch. He was a runaway with a shattered heart who failed miserably not once, but twice before finally building an empire on four wheels. Henry Ford once realized that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. He was far from a flawless hero. He was a man defined by contradictions, where his sheer stubbornness was both the engine of his multi-billion-dollar empire and the fatal flaw that nearly destroyed it. Do you think Ford's absolute refusal to compromise was his ultimate superpower or his greatest curse? I'd love to read your breakdown in the comments below. Our goal on this channel isn't just to tell history, it's to decode the blueprints of the top 1%, learning from their monumental triumphs and their most devastating mistakes. If you are on your own journey to build something great and want to keep learning from the minds that move the world, consider subscribing and joining our community. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.